Hey everyone, my name is Tony and welcome back to the channel. Today we are working with Profile Builder. Learn how to create and add a handrail profile to a stairs. This is a step-by-step workflow complete with tips and solutions for new and regular Profile Builder users. So let's get started. It's always good to use reference images when you're modeling in SketchUp. In this case, I'll use this image to model our components and profile. Now to scale this image, I'm going to draw a reference line from the bottom to the top of the handrail, and I'll use the tape measuring tool to set this line at 36 inches. Now to build this assembly in Profile Builder, we need two key elements, one the profile and two components. Now the profile is a 2D shape that is extruded along a set path. In this case, that will be our handrail. And components are 3D objects that are repeated along a set path. In this case, the balusters. So now that we have our image to scale, we can model these two components. And because the handrail is a profile, we'll just model a very simple 2D circle. So this is basically everything we need to create our assembly, and the next step is to turn them into components. You want to make sure they are named properly and set the axis to the bottom center of your component. In order to do this, it's always a good idea to set the center point at the bottom center of your component and use that as a reference to set your axis. So take this as a rule of thumb for every component you use in Profile Builder, as this is one of those steps you don't want to get wrong. So this is our interior scene, very typical stair that takes you from a ground floor to the second, and we'll use Profile Builder to add a handrail assembly on this stair. So let's start by opening Profile Builder, and we can start by opening the Assemblies dialog. And here's where we can create a new assembly. So let's call this Interior Stair Rail, and feel free to give it a description if you want to. Now here's where we can add a profile member, components, and span. We won't get much into spans, but we will add a profile and a component. So first, let's click this plus icon to add a new profile, and click this icon to create a new profile from scratch. So from the profile dialog, I'll select my 2D shape, click this plus icon, give it a proper name, and now we have our handrail profile. Now because this is very simple, there's not much to change as far as these settings, maybe the placement point, but I'll leave it to where it's at and I'll press OK. So now that we've added a profile, you can see it here on the preview of our assembly, but I'm actually going to create the assembly so we can get a bit of a live preview. So now all you have to do is click on this icon and build your assembly. As you can see, all we really have is our profile, which is a 2D shape extruded on that path. Now the next step for the handrail is to adjust the height, and we can do that using the up-down offset. So let's go to this and adjust this value from 0 to 36 inches. And to see the changes, click on Apply Assembly Attributes. Next, we need to add our two components. So we'll go over here to the Components tab and click on the plus icon to add components. And because we have components in our model, we can use the pick from model. So select that, and you can see everything that's a component is highlighted in green. And I can come here and add this as a first component. So we have Baluster 1 in our scene. And we'll go ahead and add the second component. And we'll select Baluster 2 as our next component. And you can see a little bit in our preview, but we'll just go ahead and update our assembly. So now we have the profile and the two components that extrude along the path. So if we go to our first component, which is baluster number 1, we can set this to a different spacing. Now I would like this spacing to be the same 11 inches as the run of my stairs. This time I'm going to double click on Apply Attributes so we can get a live updates. And I'll go ahead and update this value to 11 inches. As you can see, with 11 inches, I get a bit more repetition of baluster 1. So now I'll go ahead and repeat the same step for baluster 2. So for the next few steps, let's actually put the stair rail assembly. As you can see, it fits properly into place. So to solve a couple of the issues that we're starting to see, we need to be in a live update. And the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the components that are running into the post as well as on the wall. And we can do that by adjusting the component infill checkbox. Now, the component infill settings determine where components will be placed. And at the moment, all 5 options are checked for this assembly. The first option lets you place components along the path, as we can currently see. So disabling this option is the same as removing the components in the middle of our assembly. So within these options, there is one to place components at the start of a path as well as at the end. So unchecking these 2 options will get rid of the components we have at either ends of our assembly. So that looks about right, and we will repeat the same step for baluster 2. We're also going to uncheck max, so the spacing between the components will be fixed to 11 inches as much as possible. So let's repeat that for both components. So the next step is to choose a layout. This is the format in which the components will be spaced along the path. These are the 5 different types of layout, and you can see how each affects the spacing of the components when max is disabled. And here we're going to pick from start. And we'll repeat the same for the other component. So every setting we've adjusted so far has led to the components still being overlapped over each other. So to fix this overlap, all we need to do is change the setback of one of the components to start in the midpoint of 11 inches, which is equal to 5.5. So I will go over to my second baluster and change the starting offset to 5.5 inches. Looks like we still have a component somewhere on the wall, so for this baluster, I'm going to change the end setback to maybe 2 inches. See if it gets rid of that component. Has this done so? And if we take a look, everything looks fine at both ends. So now that we have our assembly ready to go on this side of the stairs, it will make sense to create one continuous assembly to test how it looks on our stair. But as you can see, creating one continuous assembly can create a lot of issues when it turns 90 degrees, and it can take you a bit of time to try to readjust the settings so everything fits in the right place. So a quick solution is to save as a different assembly to cover the sloped end of the stairs. So now that we have a saved copy of our assembly, let's apply it to the sloped part of the stairs. But as you can see, even this new assembly has its own set of challenges. And if you look down on the bottom, the balusters don't connect to either the handrail or the actual stairs. And this is something we can easily fix by adjusting a couple of settings. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure that both the handrail and the balusters connect. So if we go over to a profile member, if you look at up-down offset, you will see an option for global. And by checking this option, you're going to allow both of those elements to connect. Now for the balusters to connect, a very simple solution we could do is to measure the gap between the bottom of the balusters and the step. You can see it's about 4 inches. And we can just go to the actual components we used to create the assembly and extend the vertical members down 4 inches. As you can see, making these changes also updates our assembly, and now the baluster should connect with the stairs. So that seems to have worked just fine, and now we can apply the same assembly on this side of the steps. So let's select our path and click to apply the assembly. And looking at it, everything seems to be about right. 2 balusters per step. But we have one exception. This baluster is going into the post. So let's go back to our settings and adjust the end setback so we can remove it from our assembly. So now everything looks correct. We've completed in adding a handrail on all the sides of our stairs. And Profile Builder is such an amazing extension, and we're literally scratching the surface with what we can create. And I think the result looks pretty good. All we need to do now is add some materials, and the stair design will look more complete. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Be sure to leave a comment and let us know what you think, as well as any videos that you would like to see with Profile Builder or any useful links. Be sure to check the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.